Today we're patching a wall and getting it ready for paint. Now there's going to be a couple of different patches you want to tackle when you're looking at your wall. So today we've got a big hole in here. No one's owned up to what actually happened, but I reckon it was a bit of office cricket. And up here I've got an old hook which we no longer need, so that painting's gone. I've picked up this plasterboard kit. Now it's a great option if you've just got one little patch to do and you don't want to buy a whole sheet of plaster. Now that is also an option, or you can sometimes buy half sheets if you want to transport it in the back of the car. Now before we get started on actually patching the wall, we just want to make the hole a little bit bigger to investigate what's going on behind the plaster. Now to get my starting point, I'm just going to cut back to that stud in the wall, which is going to give me a point to mark out my new patch. Once we've found everything in the wall, I can start to mark out my patch. There's nothing to really worry about, but the great thing is I'm going to use what's here. So this existing stud, I'm going to use as a support. Obviously our hole started quite small, but I like to do a nice big patch because then when I start to feather out and sand it out, you're not going to see a thing. If I just had a little small patch here, you're going to get a little bump in the middle of your wall. So once we've marked out our hole, we're ready to cut. Now there's a couple of different ways to cutting plasterboard. One's with a knife and one's with a saw. Basically, I'm going to use the knife on this stud here because I can't get my sawing action to get through. So take your time, keep it on the line, and you're going to have to do 3 or 4 passes to get through the whole board. These are great little tools. You can use a standard timber saw if you want to, but the option with these is they've got a point on the end. So you put it in your place, give it a whack, and away you go. Take your time because you don't want to be making your hole any bigger than what it needs to be. Just notice I cut 5mm past a line and 5mm past that line. It's going to ensure I've got a bit of room, but it's more importantly going to leave a gap for all my new filler to go in and create a nice solid bond. Job's done. So I'm going to clean up the edges and this little bits of glue on the stud work. Now I don't want any frayed paper from the plaster, so I just go around, give it a nice arris. Now we'll test our patch. Alright, that's fitting perfectly. Now, whenever you're doing a patch, it does pay to do a dry run like this without any glue, so if it is a bit off, you can still change it. Next is our repair clips. Now, these are a fantastic new invention. You simply slip these in, and they're going to provide a nice solid base for our new patch. That takes care of those 3 sides. Now, as I said at the start, we were lucky enough to have a stud here. So I'm going to use that to screw my patch to, and it's going to make this patch really, really solid. Now ready for the patch and for some screws. So once I've got my outside fixed nice and solid, that's going to make this inside bracket nice and solid. So then I can screw off my patch. So that pulls them both to the surface and gives us a nice flush patch. Now I like having these gaps here because all my joint compound is going to spooge in between them and make it a nice solid fix. Then we put our mesh tape over the top and that's going to tie the 2 surfaces together. Now for the joint compound. You can get this stuff in 2 parts, so you get a base coat and a top coat, but today for a little patch I'm going to use a mixture, so you've got both in one. It's a 3-coat process. I get plenty on my trowel. So when you first put this stuff in, you want to push it in and just force it in to the back of those gaps. Then when you're happy, just drag it through. It might look a little bit ugly now, but then I'm going to let this dry overnight, sand it off, and we can start to make it pretty with our top coat. But while I'm here, I've still got a hook up here and a hole down there. I'm going to use the same joint compound to fill them up, and I can sand them back too. Well, that's it for today. I'll see you back here in the morning. Alright, that's gone off beautifully overnight. Now we're ready for the pretty patching. So what we're going to do is sand it back a little bit and get rid of these rough bits. And then I'm going to apply the top coat about 15 centimetres or 150 mil around the outside. Now, it may seem big for a little hole that we started with, but as I said before, the bigger you get, the more I'm able to feather it out and make it nice and smooth. So what we do, same again, just scrape it on. Now that's just about there, so I'm going to let that go off for another 24 hours, come back and just give it a light sand. If there's any little lumps or imperfections, fill it up again and just sand it back and she's going to be ready to paint.